Hello, and welcome to the Parentless Daughter. My name is Lauren, or Lo, or if you follow me on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, Flabulous Lo. This podcast is all about grief and my experience with grief, as well as hopefully yours and others, where we can create a safe space to talk about every kind of grief in all of its layers. As with the name, The Parentless Daughter, I am a parentless daughter. I lost both of my parents by the age of 32, but I wasn't always a parentless daughter. And in the last episode, I talked about my mom and her loss and everything that happened in between, because hers was extremely layered. This episode, we're going to talk about my dad. My dad, his name was Fred, and he was, oh my gosh, everybody's friend. Truly, he was the most social person I have ever met. We would go anywhere and everywhere, and this man knew someone everywhere we went. He was such a kind, sweet person who would do anything for anyone. I remember with my friends, if they were ever over, he would always be cooking them dinner, making sure they were well fed, making sure they had rides home and were safe. He loved like no other and truly had this smile and this presence that was just so welcoming. You just wanted to know him and talk to him, and to know him was to love him. He was just really one of a kind. If you listen to the podcast of my mom, which I recommend you do before this one just to get some insight on my childhood and the loss with my mom, because it explains a lot between my dad and I. So my dad became a single parent when I turned 8 because my mom had a brain aneurysm. He did everything he could to give me as normal of a childhood as he possibly could with the cards he was dealt. I don't ever remember this man complaining or crying or anything. If you knew him, he was always smiling. He had the best smile. And that's what I picture when I think of him. Him and I never talked much about my mom and our experiences. And now as an adult, I have so much compassion and space for what he had to go through as a parent, seeing your partner go through what she went through and now having to raise a daughter, a young daughter, all by yourself, as well as just a human having your entire world turned upside down. I can't imagine how that was for him. I'm sure extremely isolating and lonely. He never let me know that he struggled. When my mom got sick, I remember I slept in his bed next to him for like 3 or 4 months at the very least, because I was so scared something was going to happen to him. He was truly my world. He was my rock. He was my only family member, immediate family member. I'm an only child, so it was really just him and I. In my 20s, I had a little bit of resentment towards my dad in not understanding why he wasn't more emotionally present with me when I was a child. He was physically there and provided beyond belief, but emotionally, he was detached. I still felt very loved by him, but I never felt like I could talk to him if I was sad or missing my mom or anything along those lines. Now, at 33 and having lost him, I understand that he did all he could do. He didn't have the capacity to give more. I also love to remind myself that it was his first time on earth too. He was just doing the best he could. And he did a pretty good job. I may not have appreciated it when I was younger, but I do now. The last few years of my dad's life, he changed. He wasn't the bubbly, outgoing person he used to be. He used to always be out doing things, traveling, but since COVID, he had changed. He used to go away to Japan every year for a few months, and since COVID, he hadn't gone. He hadn't traveled anywhere. And I think with my dad's death, there's many factors that contributed to him passing away. We lived in the house that he owned up until his death since I was 6. We watched it get built. We had a lot of the same neighbors. Our one neighbor was his really good friend, and they used to do everything together the last few years. We used to always joke about who was married, those two or his friend and his actual wife. Because my dad and him would go to breakfast, they would get pedicures, they'd go shopping. They really were two peas in a pod. And unfortunately, his neighbor, his really good friend, passed away. And when he passed away, I really saw the change in my dad. I think that death affected him more than I ever knew, more than maybe he even knew. He really stopped going out as much and having people over and just really withdrawn. December 1st, 2024, I went to go see Wicked, and in the car back, I had tried calling my dad because I wanted to tell him that I saw it and that I thought he would really like it and we should see it together. We had seen the musical Wicked twice together, once in England and once when it first came out when I was like, 10, a long time ago. He loved The Wizard of Oz. So I really thought he would enjoy this movie. And I was calling to tell him, hey, we need to go see this. You'll love it. He didn't answer my call. It was about 7 or 8 p.m. I didn't think too much of it because, again, very social man. Maybe he's out. Maybe he's doing something. When I got home and right before I went to bed, I tried calling him again. And again, no answer. And again, I didn't think too much of it because what if he was just out? Very social man, like I said. I go to bed. I wake up the next morning and I call him right away. I feel like I subconsciously knew something was wrong because I wouldn't have called him right away. No answer yet again. And I try and justify it as, well, he was out late. Maybe he's still sleeping. This man used to wake up at 6 in the morning every single day of my entire childhood. He had started to sleep in a little bit more recently, but not crazy amount. So I try and brush off the fact that he didn't answer and go grocery shopping, thinking he was out late, maybe he needed to sleep more. I come home, put the groceries away. Actually, I filmed a grocery haul to distract myself, and then I put my groceries away. I call him again, no answer. At this point, I'm panicking. I message his neighbor and ask if her mom can go check on my dad. And she says, hey, no problem. Yep, I'll ask her right now. Her mom goes over, sees that his car's in the driveway, knocks on the door, but there's no answer. So her daughter messages me and says, hey, your dad's car is in the driveway, but he's not answering the door. I have never moved so fast in my life. I run to my car, I get in, and I start driving to his place. I live about an hour and a half away from him. This is the longest drive of my entire life. I pull up to the house, and his neighbor is standing in front of the house and asks, do you want me to call someone to go in with you just in case? And I'm like, you go right ahead and call someone. I'm going in. I can't wait. I was not waiting for anything. If my dad needed me, I needed to be there and I needed to help him. And I was not waiting one more second outside. I open his door and a wave of absolute heat hits me in the face. Mind you, it is December 2nd at this point in Canada. So that is extremely weird. Be weird in summer too, but very weird in winter. I call for him, no answer. I go in. The way his house works is the stairs to go upstairs are right there to the left. Straight ahead is the TV room and the space that you enter in right after the little entrance mudroom is the dining room, living room area. In my mind, I'm thinking this man is in either two spots, his room or the TV room, which is straight ahead or upstairs. I call again, no answer. So I decide to walk up a bit and kind of peek around where the dining room is into the TV room. and I see him there. I see him on the couch. I come around the dining room table into the kitchen. It's a semi-open concept house, so there's entryways into the kitchen and to the living room, but there's a wall in between. I come around the kitchen and I'm in the entryway between the TV room and the kitchen and have a direct view of the couch where he's sitting. I walk up slightly, not all the way, but halfway between the entryway and the couch. And I could just tell that he had died. And I run out of the house, bawling my eyes out, of course. The neighbor is on the phone already with paramedics. I, though, start to freak out because it's so hot in there and he has a cat. I run back in to try and find the cat and look at the thermostat, and it is 99 in there. Beyond hot. I turn off the thermostat, open a window, find the cat, make sure the cat's okay, and I come back outside and call my uncle and my dad's best friend. They both arrive. My dad's best friend takes the cat because I was very worried about the cat. Paramedics arrive. We talk about what I found, what I walked into, the heat, last time I talked to him, just all the questions, everything that you could think of. What I remember most from those moments is, of course, seeing his body, but second is all the paramedics, detectives, police constantly saying, "Is it just you? Are you the only child? Are you the only one?" And that hit so hard. The realization that I had just lost my only nuclear family member, and it really was just me. And I had to say yes to all of those. So painful, that realization that he was gone. That whole day is extremely numb, and just everything went so fast. I ended up sitting in my car until about 9 p.m. Mind you, I got there around 12:31. I stayed in my car until about 9 and waited for them to take his body because I didn't want to leave him. Thankfully, I had my partner and one of my best friends. They rushed over and were with me the whole time, so I wasn't alone. But I just could not fathom leaving him alone. Even though I wasn't in the house with him because I couldn't go in. The police had taped it off because it technically was a crime scene in a way because they weren't sure what happened. But I could not leave the premise. I needed to stay and wait until he left. Fast forward to the coroner's report and finding out what happened. He died of some health complications, and the heat was a big thing for me. The last time I talked to my dad, he had mentioned his heat was not working. We found out that he got his heat fixed the day before he died. We also found out that the wires were crossed. Now, I didn't end up pursuing anything against the company or anyone in particular because it wasn't clear cut. And I could not go through pulling all of this up and reliving it and having to dive deeper into everything. It just was too much, and I just wanted to move on from how he died. And I just didn't want that headache. So for my mental health and my sanity, I didn't do anything regarding that. Now, a question I had was, did the heat play a role in his death? And the answer is unclear, but most likely yes. They had said that what happened with him was going to happen, no matter what. But the heat sped up that process. He had this genetic condition, and I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but it ran in his family, where stress makes you swell. He took medication for this, and I had seen him have a flare-up once or twice in my entire life. Now, when you think of heat causes you to swell. Hence, the heat being a factor with him passing away faster. Again, a bit of a complex thing, not as layered as my mom. Losing him is something I'm still trying to wrap my head around and come to terms with. He was my world, my whole family, my everything. And to not have him has been the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. Not being able to have those final moments and having to walk in and find him has been something that I think of and see every single day since it happened. That is how my dad, Fred, passed away, and insight onto who he was. If you have any questions on him, what happened, who he is, or just anything at all, go to any of my platforms and please leave a question if you have one, or DM me. I'm sure with my parents' stories, I have missed things that people are curious about. It's just very hard to remember every little detail and all the key elements because, again, I could sit here for hours and talk about all of it. Thank you so much for sitting here with me and listening to my story and listening about my dad, Fred, and who he was and what happened. Just like the podcast about my mom, I'm going to end this one with one of my favorite memories of my dad. One of my favorite memories with my dad is very hard to pick some because there's so many with him. He was a teacher, a high school teacher. He taught biology. And he was also the ski instructor and the golf teacher. He did a mix of everything. But he used to bring me along on his field trips for skiing and golfing. And I just truly loved seeing him in his element, teaching, while also getting such special time with him skiing. We skied every single season from when I was 2 to when I was 15, 16. Going out skiing with him, one of my favorite things. We also used to do father-daughter camping with his really good friend and his daughter, who was my age, and that was such a highlight of my summer. My dad had the summers off because he was a teacher, so I spent a lot of time with him during the summers, even before my mom got sick. It was him and I throughout the summer. My mom would, of course, be with us for some of it, but me and my dad for the majority. So there are just so many memories with him, and I could go on for days of just incredible memories with my dad. Thank you so much for listening to The Parentless Daughter and this episode being all about my dad, Fred. I so appreciate you being here for this journey and listening to and holding space for my grief. Thank you.